Today, we're doing one of my favorite things, a dispensary tour. And we're stopping by at Local Cannabis, where we will be chronicling the retail experience of the cannabis industry.
From the outside, many people think that a cannabis retail business or dispensary is a high revenue, high profit business. However, since the COVID-19 pandemic, retail businesses have changed and various market factors have made it difficult. This includes the massive volatility in the industry in terms of the licensed producers have increased, as well as the number of retail dispensaries have also dynamically changed. It's been a slow burn where policymakers across the provincial and municipal bodies have relaxed retail distancing regulations. Business permits are being issued at a much faster rate for new retailers to open. This has created an oversaturation of retail stores, clustering in certain areas, and the competition is tough. We are in the summer of 2022, August to be exact, where the industry has seen an unprecedented number of cannabis dispensaries close, almost once a week. From my perspective, I've seen more retailers close at a faster rate than new retailers open at the beginning of legalization. That's a problem. Stay tuned to learn business strategies on things such as how to get more customers into the store, how to build customer loyalty. What aspects should we consider when we're defining the unique value proposition of the store? Menu curation. How do we decide what products to list? We go over sales strategies that move a customer to spend more. We talk about competition, how to hire budtenders. What are the key attributes that we're looking for? What are the team goals or metrics that a retailer should be looking at? And what kind of support are retailers getting from the licensed producers? My name is Julie Domingo, the principal at CannaReps, where we provide professional cannabis education that sparks confidence. Today, I will be interviewing Gary Hare, a seasoned cannabis retail owner and manager, to get some business insights from the ground level.
Hi Julie, how are you doing today?
I'm so good. How about you?
I'm doing great, doing great. It's good to see you again.
It is, absolutely. So tell me, Gary, this is a beautiful store.
Thank you.
What do you mean when you were talking about this concept of local cannabis?
I mean, local has always just been one of those words. So it's like growing up in a small town. You know everybody, you know your neighbors, you know who you're going to buy products from. And being in this particular area, it means when we need dog treats for the store, we go to Discover Dogs across the street. When we first opened up the store, we went around, introduced ourselves to all of the neighbors. We work with everybody when we do our team lunches, everything. We really want to be a part of that local community that we're in. I mean, even from a cannabis point of view, there was always the local guy that you got your cannabis from. So we want to be your local friendly neighborhood cannabis dealer.
So what are some of the things that your organization is doing to really create a closer connection to that?
I mean, one that we're really excited about that we got to do last week. It all started, again, when you're coming back to that whole starting things organically. One of our budtenders, Jessie, always stops by at Leah's thrift store on the way almost every single day before her shift. She'll come in with something new or cool that she found there with it, and she kind of explained the concept to me. She's like, well, they work with kids that are out of the foster care system. So after 18, they're not sort of in the system anymore. There's not a lot of resources and support for them at that point. So we always had this idea, how can we help them? They're right around the corner from us. This is a great concept with it. I mean, donating money is the easy one, obviously, too, and that's something that we want to help with. But just beyond that is, how can we help them? And it actually happened where one of their coordinators reached out to us and said, hey, we have some kids that are, and by kids I mean over 19, that are interested in cannabis, as they're creating cannabis. Would you mind if we came and did a tour at the store? Yeah, we would love that. More than happy to. I think for most of us right now being in this industry, it wasn't something it wasn't even an option when we were 18 or 19 to think, I'm going to go and find a career in cannabis. It was not something that was on the table for us at that point. So we enthusiastically agreed to do the tour, and then slowly as they put out word, they had more and more kids that wanted to sign up for it and were interested, and we're if they're all interested, we're more than happy to accommodate everybody. So we had 15 people come through for just a tour of the store, and we really wanted to kind of plant that seed, because I think there's a lot of people that want to work in cannabis just for the cool factor. It's cannabis, it's weed. I'm just going to get high all the time, but there's so much more to it. And I think that's one of the things as the market matures, that there is a lot of jobs with it that maybe aren't just in cultivation. So we were excited to do that. We actually had Jordan from Sun Farms, one of our favorite reps, come out, and he spoke on behalf of sort of the cultivation side of everything too. And that was it was really exciting to see them in the store, be genuinely excited about cannabis, seeing what it looks like now in a legal setting with it, and just hearing some of their questions where you just, it was one of these really refreshing things. And I think we had the moment, like when they left here, we thanked them. Like they were kept thanking us, like, oh, thank you for accommodating. No, thank you for giving us the opportunity to be a part of this. Like you have these people and these youth that are sort of that 19 plus range, early 20s, that are looking for a little bit of direction, and just to be able to share our stories with them. So we started with, just a tour of the store, how we set everything up, where everything comes from, and then just sharing our personal journeys. Because I think for most of our staff here, not everything was just a straight line to cannabis. There was different bouncing around with things as well too. So just being able to kind of share our personal journeys, and I think also just providing some reassurance as well to like at 20, like don't feel like you're behind the curve because you don't know exactly what your life is going to look like. And just sharing that story with them as well too, right? That this is what I did first. I was so sure that was going to be my entire career, and then absolutely hated it. So I think just being able to kind of share some of that background, that story, give them that hope and that optimism that it's okay, you're on the right track, just follow your passion, find things that you're happy about first, and then figure out how you can monetize that into your career, right? I think that's a great way to look at it from the beginning part of it, and then it's really turned into something where we want to do that on a quarterly basis now with Atleas, be able to keep contributing, having some of their staff potentially work for us at some point too. It's just to be able to give them opportunities. I think that's really great, and we were lucky enough to have Jordan from Pearson from transfer a lot of the stuff on the cultivation side of it, share his journey from the retail to moving into a sales rep role as well too. And I think, I don't know, it was one of those things that really just felt good. Like that was a day where you went home, you're like, today was a good day.
Yeah, you made a positive contribution to the community, to society, to people in need.
Yeah.
And help them understand that, there's no way that you will live a life of regret if you follow your passions and you just work hard at it. And how does that trickle in more customers in your community?
I mean, I think especially in such a large city like Vancouver, there's always this misconception that word of mouth isn't a thing here, that it's a big city, you have to do a big marketing campaign, you've got to do a blitz for everything. But I think for us here, really, we've been able to just one by one get to know a neighborhood, get to make a relationship with, whether it's the employees from the area, regular customers from the area, and give them such a good experience that they are letting their friends and family know. Like we've got a restaurant right behind us where, not to kind of wrap them up, but I know almost every single one of their staff members does shop here, and it's really kind of trickled through that side of the business as well too. So I think we've really taken kind of more of an organic and a slow approach to it, that we want to be almost able to give back to the neighborhood rather than just take from the neighborhood in terms of having customers. If we want them to come in and feel like this is a safe space for them, if they've had a hard day, they want to just chat, chat cannabis, chat life, whatever the situation is, we really want to provide them that experience of somewhere where it feels like they're going to a friend's house. There's not a lot of places you go to in a retail environment where you just talk to somebody for 20 minutes. Like when you go to the liquor store, it's really transactional. When you're getting groceries, I mean, as much as you may have stuff that you want to vent about, you don't really sit and talk to the cashier for 10, 15 minutes. But I would say that happens multiple times a day here, that people come in, they want to have conversations, they want to share what's going on in their day. And I think a large part of that has to do with like this amazing plant that we all love with cannabis, that it is so many things to so many people. We're giving people a chance to vent and communicate, and I think especially as we've seen like over the last 2 years with the pandemic, everybody being so locked up, shut out from everybody else, like to just have this place that they can come in and still come in, chat, talk. That's something that we're proud to be able to provide a space like that.
What makes local unique?
I mean, one of the biggest things that we've always taken an approach with is that we want to be informational. When you walk in, we're not going to be that place that's going to have a DJ at the front, lots of loud music. We love cannabis. We want to talk about cannabis. So that's one of the things that we really try to use to set ourselves apart, is just to be really knowledgeable and dig into the product. More than sort of the surface level, like that quick little 4 or 5 word description that you're getting from the LP isn't really mean anything to us on the budtender side of it. It doesn't mean anything to the consumer side of it. So it's really just being able to dig into that. And like we've tried to really follow that to even just doing our own strain cards for every single one, even for all the cabinets. We do all of our own cards, and they're the bane of my existence sometimes. It takes up a lot of time, but it's one of the things that we haven't wanted to compromise on, is that we don't want to do something if it makes life easier but it's less information. That's not a trade-off that we want to do. We want to be able to provide as much information as possible, and of course not everybody wants to come in and chat cannabis for 20 minutes. Some people are in a rush, and I think that's where there's some really cool things. Like, I remember one of the things I learned from you in the dispensary entrepreneur course was one new piece of information. So every time they come in, we don't have to teach them every single thing about terpenes all the way from A to Z. I mean, if they want to, we're happy to, but just kind of have that goal and that aim of just teaching one new piece of information for them to leave the store with.
Right, and it keeps it captivating, because how many times when, you know, you smoke some weed,
Yeah.
you roll it up, you often share it, and then as you're smoking it, you say, hey, you know, did you know the story about this Ghost Train haze?
Yeah.
And the person that you're smoking with is like, I had no idea, where'd you
Yeah.
hear that? I heard that from my local dispensary, and so Gary told me. And that just creates an imprint. The
Yeah.
story of the cannabis product is a way to keep the customer engaged and remember the actual product name, I would say.
For sure.
And it creates that actual attachment to the person that served it to them.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Especially if you have good recommendations.
Yeah.
And so when you're bringing in new products, how do you select them? What are the categories that you want to fill? Whether are they price points? Are they based on flavor? Where are you, or how are you making those decisions of what goes on your shelves?
I mean, I think a big part of it is sort of price points and trying to have a wide range of products, you know. And I think even for the same person that comes in every week and is always looking for craft products, there's sometimes where, you know, your car had an issue and money's tight and you need a little bit more of a budget-friendly aid for that week. So I think having a wide enough range and then having it covered for whatever they're looking for, whether that same person comes in early in the morning, whether they come in late at night, you want to have enough variety for them on those situations.
Right. And so you're saying, you know, you always, your staple product, $35 aid,
Yeah.
that's like always needs
Yeah.
to be there. Is there, you always want to have, you know, at least 5 products over 20% THC?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of those things, again, is that knowing that in an ideal world, we have the tables lined up and it's by flavor, I think that would be a really beautiful way to do it. And I think that's something that we want to move toward. But I think right now, at the beginning part of it, a lot of it does come back to that, like, that's embarrassed, like the indica sativa hybrid is like, it's still the language that most common consumers speak to us.
So
So I
craft
think,
cannabis, what does it mean to you, and what does it mean to your budtenders and your consumers?
Like, one of the easiest ways that we always describe it with our budtenders, like, it's just like giving that analogy of something that's relatable. It's like, it's product that's been grown with love. And, you know, it's not a product that's like, what's going to get the highest yield, what's going to get us the best return. Like, we feel like with craft product, it's, I mean, like the term is like, you're a master of your craft.
Yeah.
Is I think craft product to us means that it's small batch, it's hand dried, it's hand trimmed, it's been cured properly, it's going to smoke nice, it's packaged properly. Because I mean, that's really frustrating sometimes when you get the beautiful product and then it's packaged in this giant bag. Maybe it's a few cents cheaper. It's like craft to us is, it's also all of that product I love, and I think it's also the roots of the industry as a whole. That craft product, those micro growers, the people from the legacy market are what's gotten us to this point, and I think it's what's made us so famous worldwide with BC Bud. Nobody's thinking, you know, mass-produced cannabis when they think BC Bud. They're thinking the craft product that comes from all over the province. A big difference really shines through is the consistency. When they're grown small batch, you don't have to worry about there being these massive differences from batch to batch that it's really dialed in. And I think from a retailer point of view, it gives us the confidence. When we see a new drop from a company that we know and love, we don't have to think, hey, should we wait to see how it does? Should we wait to see some reviews? Like, no, their last 4 have been amazing. We're confident this is going to be a good one.
So when you take the effort to take pictures of the product and write up product descriptions, why do you find that you need to kind of redo the job when the producer has already done that for you?
I mean, I feel like it's sort of a couple of things, and I think it's the same thing from a budtender's point of view, and like you were saying with good recommendations, that there's a really big credibility factor to it.
Yes.
I think as much as credibility was a big thing in the legacy market, when you could see, touch, smell the product for yourself, and usually get to try the product, even at that point, I think you still needed a lot of credibility. So for us now, when we're ordering product from a website, sight unseen, it comes in opaque packages, so we can't see inside of it. It's really about our trust and credibility in the producer. And I think from a producer's point of view, when we're looking at the wholesale site, I mean, some of these pictures that you see, I'm like, oh, that looks gorgeous, but that's not what we get as the end result. Or the description is this thing where they're trying to be everything to everyone, when it's every single flavor under the sun and no real description of it. So I think we really want to be able to take our own photographs, try it ourselves, be able to discuss it as a staff, because if there's no story there, we've got to be able to come up with our own story. And I think, especially once you get into some of the craft products and maybe the price products that are a little bit more on the premium side of it, is you almost want to get to know the bud to really appreciate it. And I know that's one of the things that really stuck out to me at the beginning, is being able to open up a package and you see this beautiful bud, and you can admire it just like that. But when you hear from the grower how they did it, what their process is, if you're able to see some shots of it growing before, hear the stories from other people, you get that community aspect of it again, just like the behind the scenes of the journey that this bud went on. I feel like there's so much more of an appreciation for it at that point.
What are the main selling points when you're talking to your consumer? What are they really, really looking for when they're like, yeah, wow, when you said that,
Yeah.
I was convinced to get this product? Because there's just so many. How do you really choose between all of them?
I mean, it is really crazy. I mean, I think that's where, again, having the relationship with the customers when they come in is a big thing.
Yeah.
Because over time, you'll get to know, not just say this is the best product we have right now. It's like, based on what you like and what you had last week, the one that you had before that you didn't like, I think this is going to be the one. And I think that's when you go into the terpenes, who's growing it, the color of the bud is always a big one as well too. I think you're starting to see that a lot more now. Whereas before it was just, what's the highest THC I can get at the lowest cost. Now people want to know the terpene percentage. They want to know when it was packaged. They want to know if it's in a glass jar or how it's packaged. They want to know all of those things. And I think that really gets us excited. Because I mean, at the end of the day, we're kind of all cannabis nerds. We're passionate about it. We would talk cannabis 24/7 if we could. And I know my friends and family, I'll be tired of me talking about it all the time. But here in this environment, everybody loves it. So when we get somebody on the other side of the counter that wants to go that way with it as well, it's exciting because we really get to, I think that's when you get to share your knowledge of the product fully at that time.
How competitive is this market for you?
I mean, I think it's very competitive. It's one of the things I think when you're looking at Vancouver, I think people are under the illusion to think that I can just open the doors and people are going to come here to get weed from me. Like, we know we're not introducing cannabis or weed to the city of Vancouver. It's been here for decades. It's a part of the fabric of the society. So I think in reality, when you're opening up in Vancouver, you're essentially saying, I can convince you to stop going to your normal person and start coming to me. And I think that's a big thing. It's like, I've always looked at cannabis consumers as being really loyal. Like, if I'm going to get a case of beer, it's closest liquor store, right?
Yeah.
But when you grow up and when you're going to cannabis, like, I didn't call 5 different people. What do you have? What's the team? It's like, you go with the same person every time, unless that person consistently lets you down, that's who you're going with. So I think it's a very tough and competitive market in that sense. But I think it's also that a lot of people turn it into a transactional thing. And I think as soon as you lose that personal touch, that it's going to be a slippery slope from there. So I think what we really try to do is just keep it more organic. We don't need to grow 100% every single month. We want to be here, we want to have a good time, we want to talk cannabis, let that word get out there, and then we're confident that over the long run, that we'll deliver an experience every time that's worth coming back for. The regular consumers, you don't want to have the same thing all the time. And I think that's one of the advantages that we have in the legal market that people don't lean on enough, is that we have variety. There's so many different ones, so many different products. Everything's always coming out new every single week.
Yeah.
So you get that chance to really just play around and try different products.
Right. What would you recommend for someone that is either struggling in terms of running their dispensary? Because I'm hearing news that more dispensaries are closing at a faster rate than they're opening at the boom of the industry.
Yeah,
That's a problem, fundamental issue. So what would you say is like a number one tip that you would offer them?
I mean, I think the number one tip that I would offer, and it's sort of the same in most industries, is run lean. Like, I think that at the beginning part of it, especially when you're starting off, is that people have this illusion of what cannabis used to be maybe in the legacy markets where you're looking at 400, 500% margin, and I think that's just not the reality of what it is. So I think it's not an industry where people think that, I'm just gonna put a bunch of money into this, the store looks pretty, we're good. Like, I think you really have to be hands-on. You've gotta be at the store every single day, listening to what your consumers want, what your budtenders are sitting at. I think so many times that people get these walls built between the decision makers and the people that are actually here on the front line. And I think for us, that's a really big thing, is okay, taking the opinions of the budtenders. They're the ones that have that conversation every single day. So it's, what do you think you need to carry? What are you finding when you're saying this, when you're suggesting products, right? Like when a product isn't moving, we always ask ourselves, does nobody know about it? Or is this not a good product? And that sort of has two different roots with it. And I think another big thing is just, you can't be everything to everybody. So I think people have to sort of find what their niche is. There's a lot of cannabis being consumed in this city, so I think there is space for a lot of stores in Vancouver, but I think if you're not setting yourself apart by doing things differently, then it's going to lead to trouble. And I mean, I think you see some stores that are just like, we're just going to be the cheapest store. Well, I think that's a short-term game that's not going to last very long, because how much lower are you going to keep doing it? And you're going to keep competing with it. And I think it's sort of a vicious circle, because once you go that route, you're taking all the fun and the passion out of it. And I think everybody kind of checks out at that point and starts this sort of death spiral for everything, I think.
I agree. There are some retailers out there that are literally price skimming within legal, meaning that they are selling the product at the lowest possible price, but still above cost.
Exactly.
Right? Because legally you're not allowed to sell anything below cost.
Yeah.
However, it's like the difference of maybe 5%, and I've never heard of any retailer having a strategy of running all a 5% margin. And we know that there are major costs to running a business.
For sure.
You said, okay, number one tip is to run lean.
Yes.
So when we're talking about operations, we have costs like human capital. That's the most expensive. We have rent. We have the software, the technology that runs your inventory. We have like branding and marketing. So in what areas would you try to be as lean as possible? In what areas would you say, hey, I'm not going to compromise on this component?
I think the big thing where to kind of draw that line is what's consumer facing. So anything that's consumer facing or impacts the consumers when they're coming in, that's not really where you want to spend money. For us on our side of it, that means on the back side, where can we save money? And that means doing the deliveries myself, inventory, shipping, receiving, all of that sort of stuff, doing all the reporting, keeping a lot of that stuff in-house and taking care of it myself. And really, I mean, one of the things that you have, and I think it's the same, I think, in a lot of small businesses. If you want to be an entrepreneur, it's going to take a lot of time. So I think you've really got to be prepared with it. I mean, I think that's sort of the cheapest human cost at that point is going to be yourself. Like, I can't ask a budtender to be here 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, but I'll have no problem asking myself to do it, because, again, I think despite the struggles, despite how cutthroat of an industry or how tough it seems to be right now, I know that if I can make this work and I'm making a living anywhere near cannabis, I'm going to be a happy person. I mean, I've never been happier. I'm excited to come to work every single day.
What would you say, hey, don't even think about going down this route?
I mean, I think the biggest one too, and where I think a lot of stores hit a wall, is looking at your space and where you're opening the store. I mean, I think it's the same in most places. Like, location is definitely important, but I think at the same time, like, seeing a lot of the stores that I think are struggling, and you see the massive lease payments that they have, where it's way too big of a space. I'm not one to talk in this big space with it, but I think that's something that, like, when we look at that from an outside perspective, like, that's the one expense you can't control. That same expense is coming out on the first of every single month, no matter what.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, with payroll, staffing, that's obviously an important component of it. But again, it's one of those situations that if we need to kind of cut back on that, I can step up and cover that. The lease is going to be a fixed cost, and I think that's really looking at that part of it. And I think also there's a lot of things that people do that, again, aren't going to be consumer facing. Like, when people build a fancy boardroom, they have a massive office. Like, for us, when we were first designing this place, like, the first thing I said is, okay, how big can I make my storage room? Cool, just carve that out. That's the storage room. Okay, how much room do we have for an office? So I think that's sort of the thing, is that if you're going to be in the cannabis industry, you should be out here with the product, with the customers, with the budtenders, not sitting in the back in a big giant office just thinking, where's all the money going? Like, I think that's one of those things, is just really be consumer and product focused.
So if you could choose the top 3 qualities that you're looking for in a budtender, what would they be?
I mean, biggest one right off the bat is passion. Like, there's a question that we always like to ask in an interview. An interview's got a lot of questions, but usually the most important question that, like, myself and my manager Giselle will always make the biggest difference in that interview is, we say, what's your favorite strain? I mean, it's such a simple question, and a lot of times people can just answer with Pink Kush. Like, okay, that person's not for us. Like, we want those budtenders when you say, what's your favorite strain? You get that reaction, like, oh man, like this. And then you get that excitement, like, whatever the strain is, there's no right or wrong answer for it, but it's just like that excitement, their face lights up. Because I think so many times in an interview, you're so nervous, you're answering all these questions. Like, if I can make you think about cannabis for a second and you get excited, that's the number one quality I think that we're looking for. So I think that's a big one too, is just the passion part of it. And I think just more like that curiosity. I mean, if they're fully knowledgeable, they know everything about cannabis that they can make, that's great. But I think you have to have that constant curiosity because it's such a changing industry. There's so much new information coming out all the time that you want somebody that's excited to learn about it. And that doesn't think, hey, I've got this all figured out, I'm good. Because that's such a static point and it's gonna change. Within 6 months, 7 months, they're gonna be out of date. So I think just again, going at the beginning with the passion and then that curiosity to learn more. And I think something that works great in a team environment. So as much as it is, like, I mean, I don't think everybody tries every product. Right? So I think when you get that really good team dynamic, it's, you know, you're talking pre-rolls with somebody, you're talking flower, you've had a great conversation, and then they ask you about concentrates. And that's where, like, you know, we have Matt here who loves concentrates. So being able to just text somebody like, hey Matt, you tried the diamonds, right? What did you think of them? I think you get this really cool team dynamic, and we try to promote that as a company, but all of our targets are team targets. It doesn't matter to me how much they're doing individually. I mean, maybe we'll at some point we'll look at it, but for us right now, it's just more, what is the team doing as a whole? What is local cannabis doing as a team? I think that's the thing. So I think as much as people, we say they want good team-oriented people, then as a company, they go and set individual goals or targets. Like, you're driving the wedge and making them not a team at that point, right?
Yes, and that creates, you know, competition and favoritism and advancement for people that may, you know, not be as strong team players.
For sure.
But individuals, and those aren't really that sustainable.
No, and I think that's the big thing with it, right? And I think that's when, again, looking from a business perspective, I think sometimes people find those perfect budtenders, they have them, and then they lose them. So I mean, I think it's great. We want to see our budtenders grow. We want to see them move up within the industry, but to lose them as a budtender to another store means that there's something that we did wrong. So I think a lot of times people build this whole model around, let's have great relationships with our customers. And I think you almost start to think, they start to get a little bit too detached from the store perspective and think they have a great they have a great relationship with local, which I want them to have that as well with the space. But I'm also realistic that the relationship that they have is going to be with a Matt or a Jesse or a Marcus or Glenn. Like, that's where a lot of that relationship is coming from. So I think once you have that team, is just to take care of them. You know, don't make this into just this big corporate relationship with your budtenders. Is like follow through on the same things that you set up for when you were at the beginning.
Interesting. And so you're right, when it's really the budtender that creates the community of people that come into the store, and they can build and build and build. And as you mentioned, like, the number one way of growing your business is through referrals.
Yeah.
And so when someone says, hey, you gotta go see Gary, you gotta go see Matt, they know what they're talking about, and their recommendations are fire. What are you striving to reach as a team?
One of the big ones that we always go with, again, like, wanting to start with the customer experience at the beginning. Reviews are a really important thing. So we actually incorporate Google reviews into our goals as well too. That we want to try to get a certain amount per quarter, and that's really just when you have that conversation with somebody, you know, sometimes it is just asking for it, asking them to leave you a review if they've had a good experience. I mean, those good, true, genuine reviews. And sometimes it's really just having that goal of blowing them away. Because I think leaving a review is usually, you always say, like, you either really loved the experience or you really hated it. Most of the time, if people have a pretty good experience, they're not going to go home and leave a review is the first thing. So it's having that set aside for them is that that's what we want, and that's what I think shows to the outside world, the people that maybe haven't come in here, this is what other customers are saying about this location.
Oh yeah, for sure. And do you incentivize people to leave a review, or you just simply ask them?
We just simply ask. I think that's it. And we put the stickers on the back of our tablets here and stuff as well too, with the QR code, so it's easy for them just to be able to leave a review. I mean, incentivizing feels a little bit like bribing, and we want it to be a genuine experience for them. And I think it's been something that we really pride ourselves on. There's something really exciting about getting that email notification that, hey, so-and-so has left a review. Like, yes, like, you're excited.
Right. And so what are there metrics that you're looking at? Would it be things like basket size, number of items in the basket, or products?
I think those are the two of the secondary most important ones for us, is basket size and number of products. And I think they kind of go hand in hand. That, you know, not everybody is looking to come in here and buy a $45, $50 eighth. But, you know, having different products that you can suggest with them to build a nice basket for them, you know. If they're getting an eighth, is there any pre-rolls that they want? Do they want some gummies with it? You know, just little things that you can tag on into a basket to really, I mean, and it feels like a genuine thing to do too, because like, I don't know about yourself, for me at the end of the night now, I mean, I went from back in the day, like, I would just smoke joints, that's all it is, but now I like to have a couple of gummies, I want to have a drink, I want to have my joint, and I feel like it's just this all around really
like full kind of cannabis experience, each thing doing kind of its own little thing. So I think that's good, just kind of opening up consumers' eyes to the different products. I mean, I think things have changed a lot over the last couple of years, from the drinks, water soluble drops, all of those products that they might not be familiar with. And I think once you go to like the cartridges, you're looking at distillate versus live resin, and all those things I think have baked into them. The basket size is going to be higher on a live resin cartridge versus a distillate cartridge. The margin's probably a little bit better as well too, but it still doesn't take away from the consumer experience because they're going to enjoy it a lot more. I think for a lot of people, it's just they're not familiar with it, and especially with live resin cartridges, it's one of my favorite ones to talk about with people. Like, I'm not a big cartridge person, but I let people know that it's like, you can take this home, and if you can tell me that it was maybe too much money or you prefer the cheaper one, but you're not going to come back and tell me that you like the distillate better than the live resin.
100%.
And I think that's the confidence part. I think is sometimes it's just being able to say it. I mean, I think you see that in almost any industry where they always say sometimes you have to use explicitly the words, I recommend this.
Yeah.
You can't just dance around it and imply that you're recommending it and just outright saying, I stand by this product, right?
Mm-hmm. In terms of support that you get from the manufacturers, producers, what are you getting? Is it actually helping you?
I mean, I think it's definitely not consistent, and there's a really wide range, I think, between what makes a good rep and what makes just a rep that's taking up some time when they come in.
Yeah.
And it really I know we touched on earlier as well too, is like coming back to like the story. Like, are you coming in here with the story of this product, whether it's your personal story, a story that somebody that you work with has? Like, it just needs to be more of something more than just a piece of paper with the picture with the THC range. That this is a new product, you should bring this in. I mean,
yeah, so it's like creating a real lasting impression, right?
Yeah.
And so you're saying how one of the questions you have to ask a marketing rep when they come into the store, do you smoke weed?
Yeah, I mean, it's really shocking, I think, seeing even like how many of like the sales reps are coming in and they haven't tried the product themselves. Like, for us, it's like, okay, cool, let me know when you've tried it and how it goes. Like, I'm very hesitant to just bring something in. I mean, obviously there's always the exceptions, when somebody's put out 4 really fire strains in a row, we're probably gonna grab the 5th one. But if it's something new and maybe the last one wasn't that spectacular, it's what is it about this that's special? Because again, for my point of view and somebody that's doing the ordering is, if I bring in a new strain and I want to get my staff excited about this new strain, I need that story to share with them. I can share my story with them as well too, but I want to start building that excitement when we do the order. So it's not going to come for a week, but we get excited when we have new products coming. We'll do the whiteboard with the lineage, what's coming in, what are the top terpenes, just some information on it. So when it comes in on Friday and we open it up, it's something that they've heard about 3 or 4 times before that week. And that's the only way to make something stick, is there's got to be a story and a good description. And I think over time, it becomes a credibility part of it. And I think this is something, like when we get asked, like, what can reps do, it's like, a price sheet is useless. Like, having every product on a price sheet, there's no way that we're ever going to do ordering. Like, let me get this price list out. Like, it's on the website, it's on the wholesale side of it.
It's on your ordering form anyway. It's not, you don't need an individual price sheet.
So there's no extra information on there that's going to be valuable for us. We want to get that human element of it, and I think as the rep for the company, that sort of becomes that role, is that they should be able to translate what the grower is putting out and how it's something that we need to carry in our store. I think the story is always the key one with that as well, right?
I think you just gave them a nice recipe for success. So marketing reps, I hope that you're listening. And so what are other ways that they are providing support? Are they, helping you with merchandising, or what are they helping you with other than asking you to order products?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really big one again too. And I think when you look at certain reps again too, is like using the example of Jordan, who came in and spoke with
Pure Sun Farms.
Yeah, Jordan from Pure Sun Farms spoke with the youth from Anthony's Foster. Like, that's, I think, going above and beyond. Like, if you want to make it seem like we're a family, we're a community, that's a nice community-oriented move to make. He took time out of his schedule, his personal time, to come here, share his story. So I mean, that's, I think, a little bit more of a one-off version of it too. But I think for the most part, when they're coming in, is just knowing who it's good for. If we have issues with the product, not making it a really cumbersome process, because it always seems like it's really easy for them to come in and ask us to bring something in, but if there's an issue with the product, all of a sudden it becomes really hard to deal with it the other way. And I think that's where, as retailers, I think we have a long memory, is that sometimes from the LP's point of view, there's a perspective that we have to have your product. And there's a few that we do have to have, but I think that's the other part of having such a wide range of products when we're picking and choosing. There's a lot of different products, and a lot of times knowing that if we bring this in and there's some issues with it, that the rep has our back, that's going to be the tiebreaker between two different companies.
I'd like to give major appreciation to Gary and his budtender team at Local Cannabis for allowing me to do this visit. Now, when I first heard of the name Local Cannabis, I thought that the brand name was a little bland, because if you were to type in and search cannabis dispensary local to me, it's going to pull up a number of different dispensaries. However, Gary has really shown how he's built his customer base by integrating himself in the actual community, by supporting local businesses, by helping young adults in the neighborhood so that they can develop a career in the cannabis industry. He was smart, because when we're looking at cannabis 10 years, 20 years down the road, he knows that in that particular neighborhood, there's growth. To wrap up some of the insights that Gary has shared, we're talking about having good quality product, but that means finding consistency and the right support from the LP or producer. And it's really great to see a shift from consumers really being focused on THC dominance in selecting their products into looking at, okay, well, what is the package date? How is it packaged? Is it a plastic? Is it glass? What is the terpene content? There are so many other parameters that you can talk about cannabis in, which really entices the customer into digging deeper and appreciating cannabis at a deeper level. His number one tip is, in this stage of the industry, is run lean. Try to cut costs as much as possible. There's no need to do fancy marketing or anything right now. It's all about creating genuine connections and long-lasting relationships. Just think about your favorite dealer from back in the day. This is essentially drug dealing 101. The friendly neighborhood dealer is the one that you're most loyal to. And so he's just trying to replace that. For the budtenders out there, or people that are looking to get into the industry, that have passion, be curious about it, be willing to learn, because information about cannabis is always evolving, it's always changing. What we knew about cannabis 5 years ago, 10 years ago is completely different than what it is today. And it takes time for the market to catch up. What I mean by that is, most people are still using the indica, hybrid, sativa model of categorizing cannabis, and it's going to evolve into flavor profiles, or looking at the terpene content and alternative ways to consume cannabis, because the sky's the limit when it comes to concentrates and other derivatives. I hope that everything that we shared in this video has been really insightful, interesting, and helpful to you. Take care, and see you at the next session.